Oh, welcome guys. So today we will start using Cypress commands, right? So we have certain methods and what how Cypress automates those things, and can we catch an element with Cypress, right? So what are some limitations that Cypress has, right? We will cover that. So let's just make a new file over here, commons.spec.js. All right. So as I have covered in my previous video, you should not write your code outside a suite because it will end up in then some jiggly wiggly stuff which you wouldn't like. Okay, so now let's just say give it a name as suite, right? And within this suite, I'll have one before annotation, right? So usually, no, if your website is something like which works on a single URL throughout your entire end-to-end execution, you can maintain that URL as a base URL in Cypress.json. But since our we will be dealing with a bit complicated website and complicated elements as well, we're going to script alerts, browser windows, right? We're going to script this entire form which has almost all the elements that are possible in today in a difficult web page, I would say. All right. So every page has a different URL. Okay, so we will keep URL. So since our page has different URL, we will keep it in before test in every suite. Okay, so before hook basically. And let's say now command to open URL is cy.visit. So this is equivalent to your driver.navigate or driver.get, the URL in Selenium. Okay, so guys, if you would notice, as soon as I'm typing, I'm getting some intelligence, I'm getting some suggestions. Okay, so I'm getting all these methods that are available to me. If you are not getting it, guys, you just need to include this jsconfig.json file. Include it at the root of the Cypress folder. Name should be exactly the same. This is how VS Code will identify, and your code editor should be VS Code. Okay, this is the line that you have to paste in here. This I have got from Cypress official documentation. They have mentioned to include this in order to include those reference types and declarations. Okay, I will also leave this link in the description of the video. Now going back to it, so we're going to visit this URL. Let's get the URL. So this should probably visit this URL, and my test runner is open. Let me just run this. Meanwhile that runs, let me also create one test case, and I'll just name it as test. And by default, guys, Cypress has certain inbuilt assertions which I have covered in assertions topic. Okay, you can refer that video. I have made a detailed topic on this, how assertions work and what are some inbuilt assertions for certain elements that Cypress uses. Now how do we get element in Cypress? So this is our selector playground, which we have discussed in previous video also. So click on that and click on this element. So whichever element you want. By default, Cypress gives CSS selector, and this is the CSS selector with hash first name, which means my ID of this first name is first name. Okay, all I need to do is now to get the element in Cypress, you have to use cver.get and just paste your CSS selector. Okay, we can use XPath also, guys, so that I have covered in my end-to-end framework when we are building it. So in that video, I have clearly explained how you can use XPath and how to install XPath, right? It doesn't come inbuilt, we have to install it. Now cver.get any element will always return a group of elements, right? It works like find elements in Selenium, right? If there is a single element on the web page, it will give you only one record, but if there are multiple elements, by default it will give you multiple records also. Now what you cannot do, we cannot do something like this. Let's say my first name is this, and let's say now I have gotten the element, whatever element it has returned, I have got in a variable first name. Can I just do something like cware.type first name? Let's say whether it will work or not. Though it will work, but I'll show you what is the problem with this. So type is something else which you can use to type into a text box, input box, right? So it is like send keys, right? So if you would see, it has typed in the first name variable, which is working fine. Now can you just do then first name dot clear? So clear is a method which actually clears the value from the element. Okay, so it should type in first name and then it should also clear it. Let's see. Yeah, it is working. Okay, now let's just do one thing. Let's also find another element, last name equal to ui.get, copy the CSS selector, paste it here. Now let's just do last name dot type last name, and let's just say okay, so there's some dot over here, delete that, and let's just say last name dot clear. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm first typing into both these fields and then I'm clearing out of both of these fields. So let's see how it works. It has typed in, and it has cleared. It has run the clear method twice, but it has run on the same element, which is last name. First name remains as it is. So that is, guys, the problem when you will write a synchronous code. So this basically is a synchronous code because JavaScript executes from top to bottom. Alright, so it has executed these lines in a synchronous manner. But that is not you should be placing your Cypress command. So Cypress works in an asynchronous way. When I say asynchronous way, so what you have to do is it returns a promise like thing to us. Okay, so if you need to know what a promise is, I have made a very simple example in my JavaScript tutorials. Just refer that. You will pretty much understand like what our promises are. So in here, what we need to do for Cypress is we have to use something as then. So what we can do is inside then is we can just catch that element. You can use $ELE or normal ELE, it doesn't matter. So dollar basically we use to denote jQuery element, right? So and a normal would be just to denote any normal variable. We don't use dollar, right? But it is on your discretion, whichever you want to use dollar or you want to use without dollar. It's one and the same thing. So now over here, guys, now can I do something like dollar ELE dot type first name? Let's see. Okay, so guys, now over here you're getting an error. Dollar ELE dot type is not a function because whatever the return type of this is, we are catching it in a variable. Okay, but you cannot use sci commands directly on the elements. Okay, so you have to wrap them inside a wrapper so that you can use it. So this is the difference between the, so in normal fashion it would, though it would work, but you will run out in some other issues, right? Because your framework will be too huge and you might end up using these variables not so wisely, and then you might end up into losing some of your data. The example of what we just saw. But even in this case, even after catching the element, if you have to use sci commands, so what are sci commands? Like get, like type, right? Then you can select. So these are all these are all commands that you can use on the element which is chained with sci. So we can use it only on the DOM element. Okay, so cv.get returns your DOM element, right? So what you can do is, as a solution for that, we will use wrap. Now if you would ask me what is wrap, it is something that makes the element in a state so that we can use sci commands on it. So sci means cy commands on it, right? So this should work, guys. So because we have wrapped the element whatever we have got from here in a wrapper, now it has been enabled in such a manner that we can use the psi commands like type, select, or whatever you want to use. So it has typed first name. Okay. So now if you have to do something similar to this, now I can just clear the value. Okay, I can just write over here cy dot wrap, or after typing you can immediately clear as well. So you can chain these commands also. Right? And then again I can type dot type clear dot first name, and we will say first name again, just to differentiate between that. So it will type, it will clear, it will again type. That is how you have to chain commands. You cannot catch a variable, right, and then interact with that element. So if you would have seen, it has entered the latest value after clearing first name and then first name again. So this is how, guys, you have to work with Cypress commands. Okay, never catch a variable, and always after interacting with the element, use then, and then you can, if you have to just use psi commands further on that element, you can just wrap it in a wrap, cv.wrap, okay, and then use it. Okay, so with this we have covered get command, we have covered then, and a bit of wrap command as well, that why we need wrap command. Okay? So otherwise, guys, if you would see, right, we don't do such stuff. So if you have to see what you need to do for second name, guys, so what we end up doing is we don't use then immediately. Then is something when you have to do some further checks on the element. But if it is just typing, so you can just use cy.get element and type just like this. So over here, just to cover this method wrap, I have taken this example. Okay, otherwise generally we won't do this. We will just chain directly type with the element. So this is direct type chaining with the element itself. And then I can just say dot clear. Okay, and then again I can type in a new value. Okay, this is similar to this, but in order to cover cy.wrap, that's the reason I have used that methodology. So first name again, second name, and new value. Okay, and then also serves as a good use case when you have to use explicit assertions, okay, on the element, right? Or you want to perform some further checks, which we will discuss in our end-to-end framework creation. Do like and subscribe. Stay tuned.